All right. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital. I'm your host, Will Christensen, and we have Talor Ofer here, and his last name is spelled O-F-E-R. He just needs another F there, and he's become like the epitome of a retail seller because he's, out there offering. I was just teasing him a little bit and asking if he knew Oz Merchant. And you mentioned you don't know Oz yet.
True.
So
I don't know him.
I'm going to introduce you to Oz. His last name is literally Merchant, and his first name, and you speak Hebrew, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so Oz in Hebrew means
powerful, courage. Courage.
Yeah. So I think that's a little unfair that his name is Powerful Merchant.
That's true.
How do you beat that? Like, I don't. I'll introduce you after the podcast. Oz is a fantastic guy. He actually, like 2 or 3 episodes ago, Oz was the guy who was on. And yeah, your last name, you just need to add one F there, and you can compete with Oz.
It used to be with an F. That's what my parents use. When we're thinking about what you just mentioned, and I never thought about it before, to be honest with you. And thanks for having me today here in your podcast, Will.
Hey, yeah.
I mean, my parents should have called me Retail, so I would be a Retail Offer. That would
be perfect. Hey, Retail, how's it going? It's going
very good. Very good.
Retail Offer. I love it. What's your nickname? I go by Retail. What's your last name? Offer. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Big Box Tribe.
Yes, Big Box Tribe. Okay, yeah. So here's my question for you, Talor. And I like to open it up with this. If I were an e-commerce seller and I were looking to monetize my mental capital, meaning I know how to do the physical product, why would I want to ask you about monetizing mental capital? What do you know about monetizing knowledge or SaaS or those things? What's out there in your experience that makes you an interesting person to talk to about this?
I'll try to make it short, but to be honest with you, I don't have short answers. So here it goes. With 25 years of experience in retail, looking at the way that I did my path, my career, it's going to answer and going to address your question. So I used to work like in an old school way, many years. I used to know a buyer, and then I'm asking to introduce me to another buyer, and so on and so on. And that's how I got myself working with 60 different department stores in the States. And all that way, I've seen people going online. There was no Shopify, it was something else, I don't remember. Before Amazon even was there. I literally got in conversation when I was living in China with all the big guys from Alibaba and other platforms.
Oh, wow.
And I was always thinking like, I'm doing something very old school. And at some point, this is going to be thrown back to my face, not in the positive way. And I kept thinking like, what am I supposed to do to make it, a little bit more progressed? And I've been looking at friends going to high tech and doing SaaS things. And I was thinking like, this has nothing to do with me. It's not my area. And then a couple of years ago, I thought, okay, I'm working with 60 retailers. Wow. There's almost 30,000 in the States. So I'm literally not even touching the tip of the iceberg. And I thought, how would I reach out to more of them, but not manually as I do today? And I started to look for it. And you know how it is. When you want things to happen as an entrepreneur, the universe starts to communicate with you, dropping at you some, tips and tricks and do that step and that step. And you get to know people and stuff like that. I was luckily teaching, which I usually don't, but I was teaching retail to one guy that is originally a SaaS guy. Okay, he's 100% into SaaS. He just had a side business on Amazon. He wanted to sell to retailers. He got to me, started to sell to TJ Maxx, Anthropology. Long story short, he thought, okay, this is like very stupid job to do all this stuff manual with all these VAs. I'm going to end up with 200 VAs for everything that I want. Mm-hmm. And he created his own system of reaching out to retailers and buyers. So the first thing he needed was database. How would you find database? So let's say you have a service, okay? Whatever it is, your service is designs, building catalogs, e-catalogs, building menu for restaurants, digital menus, whatever it is, 3D architecture and stuff like that. You want to reach out to your customers, but eventually you're going to pay per click, or you're going to do some other kind of social media or try to go viral on TikTok. All these stuff are not really marketing. These are, I call it guesses. Like you're guessing, you're trying, but you're not becoming a database driven company. So you get to the point where you start to look for service providers. Like someone told me the other day, Do you have someone to introduce me that could do for me all my social media? I said, what do you mean? He said, I want him to do the Instagram, the TikTok, the Facebook, and this and that. I said, whoa, man. I mean, do you take a carpenter to wash your car or and do like it doesn't make sense, you know? No one can be expert. Anyway, long story short, the guy created a scrapping system, and it started from my simple, stupid tools, telling him to go to Yellow Pages or different websites that I shared with him on how to find companies and how to find the contact there. So he created a SaaS, just a second, not really SaaS, but like a data tool, data mining tool that is collecting email addresses and verifying them. So he had the email addresses of his potential customers.
So Talor, what you're telling me is the reason people would want to talk to you on this podcast is because you have 25 years of retail experience and you have experience moving towards the idea of building a SaaS tool or building a data tool. Tell me about that. How far down that path are you? Are you currently bringing on users to this new SaaS tool? Is it kind of in beta? What's that look like?
I'll explain. So I was the beta tester of this platform he built. So he took that database and then he said, okay, we got like hundreds and thousands of emails. We verified them. Now we need to send emails. He started to send emails with different tools. It didn't work pretty good as he thought. Then he started to investigate, how are you sending cold emails? If you go on platforms like MailChimp or whatever, Moosend, all this stuff, you're going to end up sending thousands of emails with one click. When you do so, if they did not sign up to your service, you're going to be banned and it's going to go to spam and then they're going to kill your domain and lots of problems. So the other alternative, which is legal and legit as well, is to do cold emails. Cold email means a system that takes your email, sending it for you by a sequence at the time that you're choosing, every minute, every 3, every 5, whatever. But it's sending it really from your real inbox or one of them. Thing with that is that you can always claim, you will not get to that point, but you would always claim, hey, I found your email by the internet and I just emailed you. So if you're not cool with that, I'm not going to email you again. There's no case here for any, legal
that's
issue.
CAN spam. That's the CAN spam law.
Exactly.
I got you.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And he was trying to scale over and over again. Eventually he found a way to scale. And at the same time, I was already on a place where I said, okay, 60 retailers I worked with. And since I've been starting to be his beta tester, I've added another 20 retailers. We're talking every retailer, approximately between 100 to 500 buyers. So that's a lot.
Okay? That is a lot.
And I'm talking about buyers that are responsive. If they're not responsive and answering me and helping me, I don't count them as a contact. For me, they're nothing. They're worth nothing. And then I figured, okay, that was full being the beta tester. Now I want to do it myself. And here comes the fun part. Started to explore who knows how many different softwares in the world of outreach. Now, speaking of SaaS, before we talk about what kind of SaaS I'm currently working for my own company, I had to use something external until I have my own system. And why is that? Because since 2017, I stopped sending my own products to retailers and started to be a rep agent. So now I have 3, 5, 10, 20 brands. They want me to introduce them to the buyers, and I do that. But then I want to scale. Even if for them, the option of 60 retailers, which eventually going to end up with 2 or 3 of them working with them, it's enough for them. For me, it wasn't enough because I'm working mainly on commissions. Yeah, I also have a subscription base, but commission is what drive our finance side. So anyway, I thought I have to scale. Then I was exploring tons of different softwares. And you're talking about days where I was paying fortune. I was paying for 2 inboxes, sending, I think, 10 or 20 emails automatically a day from a list you give them.
Yeah.
And I was paying for that over $1,000 just for that.
A lot of your retail experience and where your business lines up is your experience connecting these buyers and sellers and getting paid on a commission or a subscription basis to do those connections.
Yes.
So, I mean, in a way where you, like you said, you have a lot of experience in retail, but in a way you're running your own 2-sided marketplace. You are that marketplace to some degree or another, right? You may be connecting buyers and sellers, right? But in a reality, this is the retail offer or Talor Offer marketplace. where they come to you, the buyer comes to you and says, hey, I'm looking for sellers, or the seller comes to you and says, hey, I'm looking for buyers. And then you get paid to connect the two. That's a two-sided marketplace. And so what you just described, the listeners are going to really like this, because we just talked a lot with Oz Merchant actually about two-sided marketplaces and how difficult they can be to set up and go there. So what you're telling me is you have the two-sided marketplace, and which side was working well and which side needed to scale? So that was it the buyers that you were hunting for, or the sellers that you were hunting for?
The buyers. With sellers, I mean, I started to be a known face in the community, going to podcasts, webinars, being hosted and stuff like that. So people started to hear about it, and everyone was still looking for retail, and they don't really know how to do it. Now, the combination of this, what you call marketplace, and we get to that point because it's huge, and the combination with my personal experience and my trained team, which knows only retail, that's what they know. You know, you can take when you look at Fiverr, Upwork, any platform for virtual assistants, 99% assure you that you will not find someone who knows retail, not at the level that you really need if you want to go retail with your products. And it doesn't matter if you have physical products or virtual ones. The same thing that I do, you can copy paste in a second and do it with services. And I've done that as well. Okay, it's a long story. We won't get to that. But anyway, a year ago, I met a guy. I was training with him for a couple of years, and then one day he said, "You know, I'm really curious. What are you doing in your life?" Because we trained together, we never asked questions about personal stuff. And I said, "Like, let's go for a coffee." We went for a coffee. We started to talk, and we ended up talking like 3 hours. Forgot about everything, and it was a very cool conversation. We started to be friends. The next thing, a guy comes to my house, started to ask questions about my business, until the point where I said, listen, his name is Or, which is half of my name, Talor. Anyway, I said, listen, you don't want to know his family name. It's unspokeable. Like, there's no way to pronounce it, his family name. Anyway, so I said, and he's not on social media. He's such a guy. Anyway, I said, listen, you're asking me tons of questions about everything. I feel like I'm being spied. What's happening? He said, no, forget it. I have a crazy idea. I have a huge idea. I said, okay, what's your idea? He said, you are doing something in a small scale that you need to do big scale, and it's going to be a marketplace. And I was like, what are you talking about? What marketplace?
Interesting.
I said, okay. He said, okay, he's 26 or 7. You know, it's a different view on life. I'm almost 50 by now. So he was explaining to me how it goes with all this, how do you call it, dates, apps. Okay, talking, what was the name?
The dating apps, like
what's
the
the
swipe
name?
left, swipe
Tinder.
right one. Tinder, there we go.
Yeah,
I was like,
Tinder.
I'm 38, and so I'm just old enough that Tinder came out like when I was dating back in my 20s, but I never used it because all the people that were using Tinder, they were just hooking up and not actually dating. That's like not what was going on, and so I never used it.
I don't want to know what would happen if there was Tinder when I was younger. I really don't want to know. Same thing goes with mobile. Like, I was traveling for years, not working, really traveling for years without, not even a camera, like nothing. There's no memories. It's everything in my head, nothing. Anyway, the guy says, just like Tinder, just like any other market, it's a marketplace. You need something, they need something. There's a match or not. It's just a matching. That's the way he saw it. And I said, listen, you're talking something very big here. This is not the scale that I'm used to, or it's not even on my plate. And we started to think, roll the thought. And then I said, so what's so special about me? There's like Wayfair, and there's, some marketplaces for wholesale. And he said, no, nobody is doing what you're doing. Nobody is introducing online vendors, specifically Amazon, Shopify, and, the e-com sellers. Nobody connects them directly to buyers in big boxes such as Costco, Macy's, you name it. I said, okay, no one is doing it. That's true. He said, you don't understand what you have in your hands. That's what I think. You don't know the worth of it. And you will understand once you have a marketplace and you spread the word around it. Anyway, long story short, we started to build it a year ago. It's still under construction, but the end point of this is exactly what you just realized and mentioned a couple of minutes ago, which is marketplace.
That's crazy. So he came to the same conclusion I did, like, hold on, that's a two-sided marketplace. And you were like, true. Yes, it is. And that's what we're building.
And I think you're a genius, and I'm super serious here because it took you like what 10 minutes, 5 minutes to realize that. To me, it took 20 years, and then I didn't realize it myself.
Well, here's the thing, Taylor. Like, I think something that's fascinating for me is the way you're monetizing your mental capital is through a connection. So you were willing to be open and honest and talk through and look at all of those different things. And that's part of what created this opportunity for you to dig in this way and create a space where you're connecting the dots. And so all you're doing is taking something that you were doing manually, a service that you were providing manually, and you're now turning that into an automated process in the form of a SaaS. We're essentially building a robot version of Taylor who's going to sit in between and matchmake.
Exactly. When AI rolled out a couple of years ago, well, everybody spoke about it a year and a half ago. But before that, when it just enrolled, I had a brainstorming with that guy that created the previous SaaS I told you about. And he said that there would be a point that he will be able to duplicate himself with AI. And I thought, like, this is like super future thing. It's not going to happen in the next 50 years. He was like, no, mate, you're so wrong. It's going to take a year or two, not more than that. It still didn't really happen, but it's happening. It's going there. And it's exactly what you just mentioned. Like, I'm duplicating myself, scaling it. And if you want to call it SaaS, yes, it's SaaS. Because eventually, behind the scenes, obviously, there's GPT API, there's Google Script, and others like that. And they are doing this. So yeah, you need to do some corrections. You need to connect the dots. You need to put everything into the electricity. Again, I'm old school, yeah? If anything doesn't work, I always tell my team, like, just restart, close it and
turn it off and on again.
Exactly. That's all I know about those areas. But I know what I need. I know what the customer wants to see. I know what the buyer wants to see. I know what both of them are looking for, so I can make them match.
Okay, Taylor, I love it. We're going to shift the conversation here just a little bit. When is the first time you can remember monetizing mental capital? So a lot of times this brings up a lemonade stand story where, I was 5 years old and we, sold lemonade on the corner, or, one guy sold Coke to his brothers and sisters out of a fridge in his room. Like, I had a guy who was like, yeah, I sold drugs in high school. Like, I've heard all sorts of different stuff. What's the first time you can remember monetizing mental capital?
Well, I didn't sell a lot of drugs in my life.
I'm not going there necessarily. I'm just
kidding. I'm just kidding.
We have had those guys on the podcast before. It happens. To each his own.
I'll tell you something that not necessarily would really address your question. It depends what the audience wants to hear. But I'll tell you something real. I live in Israel, and obviously my mother language is not English. And when I was 6, my father passed away, but he had a very, very strict way of looking at life, including stuff like work, home, family, kids, and all this stuff. Old school, much far old school than me. Anyway, when I was 6, we were living in internal schools because he was managing those schools, and my mother was library manager. That's how half of my life were passing by. And he said, we're bringing in volunteers from the States, and I'm opening like a small kiosk, and I want you to sell in the kiosk. And I was like, Dad, I don't know English. How can I talk with them? He said, you will learn. That's how I'm going to learn. I said, okay, fine. But math, Dad, you know how it is with me. I'm not so good with math. Like, I don't know if I'm going to bring them the right change or whatever. So if you're fine with that, I don't mind. So I didn't care about money. He said, yeah, you're going to learn that as well. And, volunteers from the States, they would not cheat you. Anyway, 6 years old, every summer for like 2 or 3 years, I don't remember, I was sitting there in the kiosk all by myself. My brother was just coming to eat chocolates, and he was 3 years older than me. He is 3 years older than me. And I was the one who's selling. And my father did that because my brother is, they call it nerd. He's not a nerd, but he's not a business type of person. He's a computer guy. So he's not, he doesn't have any passion. Exactly. No passion to talk with people, to move business, to talk about pricing, stuff like that. And my father realized from that age that this is the type of the person I am. And this is where I suddenly saw like money coming in. And I'm just giving them the Coke and money. So I was like, oh my God, I'm making a lot of money. Now, none of the money is mine. but I held it in my hands. So for me, it's mine. You know, 6 years
It was
old.
mine. Possession is 9/10 of the law, right?
Exactly.
So
And I don't even know what to do with all this money because I'm 6 years old. You're talking about
when
1982.
I was 6 years old, I remember my dad, he would take it out. We called it like my day. It's your day. And on my day, I got a $20 bill and I got to go to Toys R Us and I could basically buy almost like there was a tier of toys that were like above $20, but those were like what you got for Christmas once a year. But basically everything else in the store was less than $20. So like any action figure I wanted, any like Nerf gun I wanted, any like the possibilities for $20 was endless. So I can only imagine cash register full of a couple $100. Like you must have been like, I am a billionaire.
Exactly. That's how I felt. And, you know, I think that gave me like a huge passion to business. So yeah, it's 6 years old. I know.
6 years old. I love that. So I have a 7-year-old and I don't think I would have trusted her to stay in the kiosk. I'm not sure that she would, if I had her stay in the kiosk, I think she would have drunk all the soda. Like I would have found her passed out on the floor.
Forget it. Not only that, you would get arrested for doing it. We're talking different times. We're talking 1982. Like when I was 6 years old, eighth grade, you would call it eighth grade, eighth class in here. I don't know in English. But anyway, I went to school once with my brother and all the rest of the days after the first day, myself alone. And I'm talking about 3 or 4 miles.
Wow.
Crazy, busy roads, you know, with everything you can imagine, huge city. For me, it was huge. Now it looks to me like a town. But you're talking about highways and everything there. And I was like 6 years old, going to my school, everything is good, no problem. No mobile phone, no one to text. There's no GPS tracking me, so my parents could be relaxed. Nothing. They go to work and they just wait to see me back there in 3 o'clock afternoon. That's it. If I'm back, I'm back. If not, you know, whatever.
We'll get there.
Different days, you know, it was so
Different
different.
days.
And when I send my girl to her CrossFit workout afternoon and she's 12, I'm like sitting there waiting for her to come back after an hour and a half,
and checking her GPS location
every 5 minutes. Maybe she lost her way. Why would she lost her way?
I mean, if we're talking about that side of it, just anecdotal, like I wonder if that creates more anxiety or less anxiety for you and me to have the ability. Because my kid has a Gab watch. And so her watch, I can track where her watch is. I don't know if it's better or worse that I can see exactly where she is.
I think it sucks. I think we as parents are not doing the right thing when we take technology into our personal life, such as, you know, cases with our kids. Like, let them go, let them enjoy in the garden, whatever. Worry if your job is to be worried about them. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay to know where they are and what they're doing.
And there are some times where it's so valuable, right? Like if she, you know, is sick at school, or if she sometimes like she'll go to a different spot to get picked up and she'll call me and say, Dad, I'm over here. Or like there's so much convenience to it. Like, how can you not? But coming back around, so the 6-year-old has now discovered what it's like to be a billionaire. And this sends him on a trajectory. What's the Cliff Notes version? What did you do next after the 6-year-old discovers he's a billionaire? What did you do next? What did you monetize next?
The next big junction, I would say, was Japan. I was living there for 2 years. So after the army, I went to travel because, you know, the army is a hard times for every young 18 years old man. And I went to travel. I was traveling on a bike, India, north, south, for a long time. And then I ended up being broke without any money. And I didn't want to go back home. So a friend told me, let's go to Japan. I heard that they're selling jewelries in the streets and making some good money. So let's try it. Why not? We can travel there as well. And I said, fine, no problem. Just like that, you know, because you're traveling, not married, no kids, no commitments, no nothing. I didn't have any thought about going to university or anything like that. I just wanted to feel free and enjoy my life. Yeah. And so I ended up there. And in a matter of 2.5 months, I became partner of a group with 16. We started with 16 stores, street stores, but stores. And those stores were making crazy money. I'm talking about, you know, good nights. We were bringing $10,000 a store a night. I'm talking about 3 hours work.
Crap.
And I'm talking about cost of goods Not even 0.5%,
So,
maybe even less.
Hold on, Taylor.
We used to buy, check this out. We used to buy a ring.
Hold on. You're telling me the 6-year-old who's discovered what it tastes like to be a billionaire. So he's already got that mindset. He goes into the army, learns some discipline and a lot of the other pieces that come with that. Then he goes to Japan, and he's gone there to feel free and just mess around. He sees this operation and he's like, holy crap, we could be billionaires. And he remembers what it was like to be 6, holding all of that money. And he's like, oh, this could be real.
Exactly. So the kiosk was my biggest English school, but my biggest also business school, monetizing my cut. And then when I got to Japan and saw what's happening there, I thought, okay, I'm going here out of Japan. I had 3-month visa. I'm going out of Japan after Japanese goes out of Japan, not before. As long as they're here, I'm here. I ended up being thrown out of the country after 3 years because I didn't have a visa. I just stayed. I said, I don't care. I'm not going anywhere. I don't care. 3 years, I'm not moving, not going back home. Mom, dad, forget about me. That's what I did. I was crazy about Japan. It's amazing there. Anyway, we did tons of money. Like, it was like garbage. I was 22 or 21, and this is not the age you want to throw so much money on a person, because I literally spent everything, and it was a lot to spend. I don't even, if today you would give me those amounts, I wouldn't know how to spend them. And I have 3 kids, yeah? I wouldn't know how to spend them. I don't have the ability. But then you're talking about going to a bar for half an hour with friends, boom, $5,000. You go out of the bar laughing with your partner. What did we spend $5,000 for? What did we don't even know what we bought. Nothing. It was crazy. And we were
bought
buying
the whole room drinks.
The whole room, the girls, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Parties, like party mode. And we were working nights. So you finish working at 1 or 2 o'clock a.m. You don't go to sleep. You go party until 6, 7 a.m. every day. Boom, 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 the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wash your teeth in the Michelin restaurants in the morning. That's how we lived, We lived like crazy. We really thought it's going to be like that all our life. Like, okay, that's how it works. That's how it is after the army. You get money as much as you want, which is bullshit, obviously.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, and let me wrap it up for you. Later on, I was in Spain. I was doing other stuff, importing, stuff like that. Never mind. I got somehow to China because my supplier was not able to supply to me. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to China and supply myself. Ignorant, because I got to China. I'm standing there in the middle of nowhere, in a huge city. I don't know where is left and right, north, south. And I'm supposed to find bag factory. Where would you find a bag factory? You don't even know a word in Chinese, and they don't speak English. We're talking 2003.
In 2003, that was like right before the iPhone may have just come out, but there was no Google Translate.
No. There was no iPhone. iPhone came out. I remember first seeing iPhone on 2007 or 8, something like that. The first one. That's what I remember. I might be wrong, a year or two, but that's more or less the time.
Oh, you're right. 2007. January 29th, 2007.
I remember that because I remember that 2 years before I left on 2010. 2 years before, I saw one of the guys who left was a friend coming with his iPhone. I said, what do you need for this scrub? I had my Nokia and was happy. Anyway, I somehow found someone who could help me in English, broken English, but still English. Step by step, I created my own company. I came for 2 weeks and I stayed 7 years. I just realized that, wait a second, I'm in the middle of the goal of the entire globe. The gold is here. It's not in the States. It's not in Japan. It's freaking here. Like, you buy a bag for $2, and I know that the bag, because I came from Spain, the bag is selling there for 120 euro fast, without efforts. If you want an effort, you're going to sell it for 200. Okay? So I thought, okay, I'm going nowhere. I called the guy in Spain and said, the business is yours. I'm going to send you stuff. You're going to buy it for me. I leave you the line of, accessories we had. I'm going to be your supplier, but I'm not going back. We had an agreement. Goodbye. And then I started to look for customers because, hey, I have products. I need customers. And I found them. But here is the third thing that happened, which is wrapping up is kiosk Japan and China. I got 2 contracts back in 2004, I think, or right after coming to China. I was like in the first year or so. I got 2 contracts. First contract was $1.5 million contract for steam irons with Costco through a partner that I made a partnership in Canada, Costco Canada. And the second one was for another product in the States. And the second one was 1.1 million. So here you are, a guy who did tons of money in Japan and managed somehow to lose most of it, starting from scratch again and gaining like crazy contracts. And it's just the beginning. It's the first contract only. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Then I got a huge slap to my face from the factory, both of them. They screwed me to the bones. I had to scratch myself from the floor for literally more than 2 years. I ended up with even no money for it. Forget about the rent. I'm talking about not enough money for coffee in the street, not enough money for vegetables. I was at that point. I got away with that. I paid everyone who I owed money, got everything settled down, and I raised another company again and succeeded. But that slap, 2 slaps actually, was the biggest lesson in my life. Understanding that you can get all the gold on a plate, but if you act like an idiot, the gold's going to turn shit. Sorry for my French. And that's like wrapping up, like, you have to have balance. And from that point, I started to be what we call a human being and not someone who thinks he's whatever. Because I really thought I'm like, wow, there's no one like me. I'm insane. I'm genius. And I was not even an idiot. I was less than that. I was just a lucky idiot, but an idiot.
So some serious humility there that you had to kind of learn that humility and figure out where to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thank God for that slap because I needed that. I really needed that.
So let me ask you this. And I think if I'm summing up your story and kind of hearing where you've gone in all of this thing, connection seems to be the thing that I keep hearing over and over and over again. You have an ability, you literally dropped yourself in the middle of China with no one that you knew, and you figured out how to get someone to help you, broken English, get around, connect those dots. 2 questions. First question, when you're in that moment of desperation where you're like, well, crap, how am I going to solve this problem? How do you go about finding someone to help you solve that problem? What's the first thought? Like, oh, crap, I got to find someone to help me? Or how do you begin to pick yourself back up and figure that out?
There was one specific day I wanted to buy vegetables. I had 23 RMB, which is equivalent to about $2.50. We're talking the rate there was 8.6 renminbi for dollar. I had 23 renminbi. This is not enough for nothing. And I figured, okay, I don't have enough, so fuck that. I took a bus, which cost me, I think, 9 or 8 renminbi. I took a bus to the big city because I was living out of the city because of the situation. And I suddenly saw a sign in Hebrew saying the new shul, the new synagogue, is right across the street. I said, okay, I'll take coffee from Starbucks and I'll go there. Going to Starbucks, not enough money for coffee in Starbucks. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is getting crazy. And I didn't want to call my family and ask for help because, pride, whatever. I go to the synagogue with my face on the floor. And then someone tells me, hey, I was looking for you. And he gives me like, not high five, but, a hand. And I'm like shaking his hand and feeling something. And I'm looking at it and I'm seeing $200 in my hand. And I'm raising my hand and said, Yuda. His name is Yuda. Yuda. What are you doing here? I gave him $200 like 2 years before that. And he literally disappeared. He was a young, crazy guy. Very, very sweet. But, living his life like whatever. And he saw me from the other side of the synagogue. And he was like, immediately coming towards me to give me the $200 because it was a shame. So much time passed before. Anyway, same day, another guy who was producing for Lee Cooper. I guess you know Lee Cooper, right?
Yeah.
He was a Lee Cooper producer. Customer came to him, wanted the tablecloths, and he said, "Mate, I'm not doing that. I'm doing only denim for Lee Cooper, so it's not, But I know Talor. He's a great guy. Maybe he can help you." And both of them came with taxi to my house, closed the deal. I didn't know the tablecloths price, but I told them it's $1.10. I figured out. I hope it's the price. The guy gives me on the table. I have this guy with Lee Cooper. His name is Benny Golan. Look for him on Facebook. He's a tall guy, very cute. He can give you a testimonial about this, that it happened. He's a witness. Anyway, the guy puts on the table an envelope with $3,000 saying, this is your deposit. Just give me a call. Let me know when it's ready. Just like that.
Here's your deposit.
Boom,
so
I'm back to business.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. Then I have a guess to the answer to this question, but I'm going to share my guess after you actually answer it. If you could call the Talor, and we're going to go with the Talor who he's just been thrown out of Japan, right? So this is the guy who, he's just been thrown out of Japan. He's got to figure out where he's going next. If you could call him and give him one piece of advice that would help him monetize his mental capital, what would you tell him? If I gave you a cell phone that you could call him right now, I think I have an idea of what you might say. So I'll share my answer after you share yours, but I'm curious what you believe you'd say.
Build a business. Don't work from your guts. Don't work from your feeling, your head. Work by numbers.
System. That is not what I thought you were going to say, but I love build a system. I'll tell you what I thought you were going to say, but build a system is such a powerful, we're talking about monetizing mental capital. My grandfather, multi-millionaire, owns several apartment buildings. I was telling him I was going into business. He said, you got to build a black box where you put stuff in one side and on the other side, it prints money. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This is literally how immature I am. I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, I did not get it. And I'm driving down the road yesterday and I'm thinking, Grandpa, you were right. Like, it is about building a black box with systems where I put one thing in one side, I put buyers and sellers in one side and money comes out the other side. Like, that's the two-sided marketplace. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm building. So I love that. Build a system. So now here's what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, if you're totally broken and you haven't figured out where to go, if you're stuck, change your situation, meaning change your surroundings. Everything you've talked about, every time you've made a rebound or you've shifted in this story, most of those times have been about finding yourself in a new physical location. But I think that's true of both sides of it. Like, you changed your perspective, and that's what brought you opportunity. Instead of just sitting in outside the city, you went into the city, and God be praised, like, there were opportunities that came there, but you found new opportunity by changing your situation.
Listen, I was thinking something those days. I was thinking, okay, what am I doing here? I'm stuck. I need the dollar. Hold on. What is the dollar? The dollar. What does it says on the dollar?
In God we trust.
In God we trust. Then I realized that if I trust myself, forget it. I can build a system, and I will. But if I don't trust God to bring it, then the system would be, you could put anything you want in one side, but nothing will come from the other side. And that was the conclusion from the big slap. Understanding that it's not me. I'm just a tool. I'm just a
tool to make it go.
Tube, not just a tool. Why a tube? And this is my biggest tip out of anything. As more as comes into the tube, as more as has to go out, meaning to give people, to help people, charity, whatever it is. Otherwise, there's something stuck in the tube and nothing can go in. There's no more that can come in. There's money waiting to come in, but it cannot come in because you need to put out money as well. You need to use money as well.
Beautiful. So become a bigger tube. What's the biggest tip you'd give for becoming a bigger tube?
Giving.
Generosity. Yeah. Love it. That is fantastic advice. So the last thing I want to ask you is, if you ran into another seller or another buyer in an elevator, what would you say to them?
If I run to another seller
or a buyer, so you got 60 seconds and you get to just tell a little bit about your marketplace or about your retail.
I would tell them that we at Retail Empire, which is my company, we are connecting buyers and vendors, and our term is 2B. So there's B2B, B2C, B2G, government, and I created V2B, vendor to buyer.
Vendor to buyer.
Vendor to buyer.
Oh, I love that.
Eventually, that's what we do, V2B. You know what they say about positions in the government? As longer as the description is, as less good position as it is. When it's short, president, boom, that's it. The minister of foreign defense is not so important. As shorter as it is, as better. So V2B and B2V. I haven't really gotten into the B2V enough, but we're working on the platform, and that's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to work both ways.
Interesting. Man, Talor, I think that's going to be the title of the episode right there. Introducing V2B, meet Talor Ofer. Like I think you've got some very
Amazing.
interesting stories about, I mean, in many ways, a lot of what you've done in your life was first B2C, right? Like where you
Right.
like I'm thinking about the 6-year-old, and then Japan, still many B2C, and you probably had a V2B there because you had vendors you were buying from and taking them all the way to the buyer. And then you just continue to see that. And now you're seeing this huge opportunity in this V2B. I love V2B. That's an amazing term. And you're the first person I've ever heard use it. That's awesome.
Because there was no term like that until I said it.
There you go.
I just happened to think about it. Yeah.
Talor, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode
Thank you for
of
having
Monetizing
me.
Your Mental Capital.
For me as well. Enjoyed every second. Thank you, Will.